let's take a moment to set our motivation. Mainly, that's just wasting time for Karina to sort out the breakout groups. So we'll waste time by setting motivation. Or sometimes I like to look at, like, instead of setting it, like, what is it? Like, why did I choose to log on today? Which is often more distressing than setting motive. It should, like, recognizing why I logged on for me generally leads to a realization of it's not always a very good reason or a good motivation. And then that somewhat distressing realization leads me to set a higher motivation. Like, I'm here because I have to be, or I just want the credit, or my seats be forced me to. And then, like, from that perspective of, oh, well, that is my real motivation. Um, then, okay, is there a higher motivation? And oftentimes I find, like, we think of motivation as something that we do at the beginning of class, and then that's it. I don't think that's a great way to think of it. I think motivation is a constant thing. So when class, when the energy of class drops, or it gets boring, or we get lost, then it's like that moment of wanting to go reach for the phone and just entertain the mind, distract the mind. Uh, then that's when we come back to the motivation, be like, actually, I really want to try to follow this philosophical thought. I'm lost. I'm going to try to figure it out. Or I'm bored. I'm going to fight that restlessness and take this opportunity to train my mind, or whatever. It's like that's the moment we feed back into our highest motivation for being here. Here's the plan today. We're going to finish up class 2, and then we'll do class 3. Review. Class 1 was 3 principal paths. Class 2 was bodhicitta and how to get it. We talked about the 7-step cause and effect method for bodhicitta. I started that class by saying, I'm not a big fan of that proof. And then by the end of that class, I was like, this proof is amazing. Like, I talked myself into how cool that proof is, or that meditation is. And the idea of really tapping into the love, this, it's got a, it's a special love. It's got a name of a special kind of love. And it's often described as the love of a mother for child, or parent for child. And can we tap into what that kind of, especially for a non-parent, can we tap into what that kind of love would be like? And then having meditated on that, try to expand that out and not reserve that special love just for one person. Can we have that for everybody? Did anybody try it? That meditation? That's a profound lack of hands. Rosie is excused because she wasn't here. This course will be way better if we try the thing, right? Otherwise, it's just philosophical. It's just some knowledge. Uh, so I've been really thinking about that a lot, um, which is easy for me right now because my dad's quite sick. So I've been thinking a lot about that relationship and that kind of love. Um, and I was talking about it with somebody over Vietnamese food. And if we could develop like that love that would do absolutely anything for somebody, like that's where we left off last class. Try to develop this extremely special love. Don't reserve it only for your child or your parent or your partner. Expand it out. Try to cultivate it towards everybody. If we do that, my experience was it quickly becomes totally dysfunctional. Like, I can't treat everybody with that kind of love. Like, if I see all suffering in the world through the eyes of my mom, doesn't that pain then become unbearable? Or I can't, like, if my mom saw me without food or without a place to stay, she would bring me in her house and start shoveling food in my face, clothe me, give me money, give me a ride, do whatever she could. How do we walk around the world like that? So that's the topic of your breakout group. Like, this meditation sounds great, but then when you try to do it and cultivate that attitude and walk around in the world like that, it's like, oh my God, this is dysfunctional. I can't actually do that. Or can we? Or how does it work? I don't know. Go join a breakout group. We'll do 10 minutes and come back and see what we thought. Does that make sense? Any questions about the question? Is
Can
anybody not clear?
can you just give it in one question, in one sentence? Just repeat it once again. No, you can't.
The
Okay.
meditation is to develop compassion of a mother for her child and then extend that to everybody. Can we do that? And it just try that and then walk around in the world. And then how do we actually function if we could actually generate that attitude? How do we implement it or how does it not become dysfunctional? It would be, if you tried it, share your experiences. How do we actually do that without filling our house with homeless people and giving all our money away or the pain of the world becoming unbearable like that? 10 minutes.
What's up?
Hi everyone. Now I'm in English group. Okay. Gibson, happy to
How's
see you. Someone
Good.
disappear right here and you can say it.
You can see me.
Okay. Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe
Let's
tomorrow.
start. Maybe. I know you're busy.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Let's start. Excellent. How do you?
while I was doing my homework for the second class, I kept thinking about I think we had it in the mixed nuts class. I don't remember which class it was, but it was during the Hatha Yoga Pradipika 4 that I remember. And Geshe talked about pongwame, right? Without hesitation. Just acting out of compassion or love without hesitation. And I thought, how many times in my life have I actually done that? And the sad truth is, I think I can count them on one or maybe two hands. That's it. It's, I don't know. It's a little bit sad, but getting to that point where you gently, like, they feel part of you and you have to act right there. You know, you cannot possibly stand what is happening to them. You have to act. How do you guys develop that more in your lives?
And nobody. Gibson, please share.
I think it's very difficult for me because even to my family member, it's hard for me to develop that kind of love 100% of the time. Sometimes I just ignore my family and I haven't make a phone call to them to check out if they are good or bad. But I think the way is try. The one I found is I use the tongue meditation and bring that into my daily life, and that will make me aware that people maybe they have some problem or have some pain, and try to think of what they are going through right now, and try to take out their pain and stuck into my the diamond in my heart, and dedicate that hope one day I can realize that maybe he or she was my mother in my previous life. And through this practice, maybe once a year or twice a year, when I see someone in front of me, I will have 1 second or 10 seconds of a realization. Maybe he was my mother. And this is my own experience. So maybe Marina or anyone else, Daria, can give us some input.
If Daria, do you want to share or just listen?
It's difficult, yes. It's I can imagine like it's my mother. It's a lot of people. It's my mother because I worked with children. It's mental retarded children have mental retarded, and their mother feel suffering and pain because they can change his children, and amazing because they are brave, and I look to this mother, and think maybe there was my mother, and but I don't know if I have like these children, ill children. I don't know. Maybe I am not feel compassion like this mother feel to his children. And it's very difficult because sometimes I criticize. It's, oh, what are you doing? You're wrong. You don't think about your children. And sometimes I stopped. they they think about your child 27 or 24 hours a day. Yeah, it's very difficult. I think it's my children, and
Thank you for sharing. Someone more? Okay, I can share how it was for me. If you know, I was very strong Christian, and I remember the most difficult time in my life, and I was at church, and it was a very special ceremony, and I go away and I understood what I have pain because I have love, but I keep this love in my heart and I should to open it. And I start from this time, try to give up everyone what I even met. And was so difficult for me. 1 year, it was like so terrible. Thus, after several years, I understand, yes, now I can give not equal, just maybe a little, but everyone. And when I already came to ACI courses, and when I first time heard this idea, it was 2020 first, when I heard this idea, it's really changed my mind. I like, wow, it's so deep. It's more even deeper than in Christianity, like not just love this way, like your mom. And now Earl asks us love everyone like your children. Like this way, most powerful. And this is like really make me think, do I love everyone really the most powerful how I can? Not. Sometimes I can forget about it. And yes, I meditate about it a lot and really try to image everyone this way. And even sometimes it can be successful, but it's a long time if true. I try to love everyone more than 10 years. It's so terrible. And I cannot say what I can equal love for everyone. It's true. So interesting.
Not an easy thing to develop, that's for sure.
I think it's more easier for me to focus on the elderly people, like or those who have sick problem, sick. So if I'm on the street or in the shopping, like a supermarket, I will try to focus on those people, especially they're alone and nobody's accompanying with them. And I was thinking about maybe they're my mother and they are going through very hard time alone, and to focus on more easy objects and try to get used to that feeling. And if you are more get used to it, then you can explain to those people, maybe they are young and strong, and thinking about maybe they are also my mother, they have some problem. So I think we can go first to those people who
Okay. If you are an English speaker and you see a little globe at the bottom of your screen that says interpretation, if you click on that, it just gives you an option to listen in various languages. For instance, English, Russian, Spanish. Click on the language you would like to hear, because now we'll give an opportunity for people to share. So I'd love to hear ideas. How did it go? I'm struggling with this. Give me an answer. Daria, you went last time. Hold on to that thought. Type it in. Thoughts? Marina.
Здравствуйте. Я бы хотела поделиться тем, как желание помочь всем меня отводит от моей практики. То есть это такая часть негатива. Я настолько сильно хочу помочь всем и нахожу кучу дел, и тогда моя практика уходит назад, и иногда у меня даже нет сил практиковать. И в этот момент я понимаю, что мне нужно сначала начать с себя, с моей практики, для того, чтобы создать вот этот ресурс и реализовать желание помогать всем и расширяться еще дальше. Спасибо.
Cool. Thanks, Rita. Daria, what do you got for us?
Oh, I just texted, but my point was when I feel compassion to others, for example, I see people around me getting sick, and what I face the problem is they don't want to receive the help the way I think something could help them, and it makes me angry. So, and how to stay loving and to help really when today they are not able and they don't want to take the help too. And I only find the way is to be examples. So people ask me and I see this is the only way, and then I can help share my experience. And this is the only loving way I see now, how to help not being violent to others. Or maybe there are other ways, but I see, my point is here, what I came to is only being example, to have my own practice, and maybe to share my path when I have results. So people ask and I have something to share from my experience.
Cool. Thanks, Daria. I'm tempted to pick on people. Let's do
We have
one.
some hand raised. Wait a second.
Elena.
Добрый день всем. Мы обсудили и пришли к мнению, что очень важно нарабатывать такую привычку, осознанно следить за ней, как мы проявляем себя по отношению к другим. Потому что очень часто мы говорим чисто автоматически во имя всех живых существ, но когда происходит какая-то ситуация, кто-то наступил на ногу в автобусе или толкнул, то мы это все забываем. Поэтому важно держать фокус внимания на своих действиях и как можно чаще раскрывать свое сердце. И предложили еще практику, напомнили про обмен себя на других. То есть она тоже помогает развивать любовь к другим. Спасибо.
Well, thanks, Elena. Let's do one more, Irina number 2.
Всем привет. Для меня хорошая идея, чтобы помнить об этом, это относиться к людям, к другим, как к больным 3 ядами. Невежество, невежественная симпатия и невежественная приязнь. Помнить о том, что они так же, как и я, больны этой болезнью, и тогда мое сердце сопереживает им, и мне становится, у меня появляется желание им помочь. Также как способ брать антидотом 6-разовый дневник, подумать о пустоте в разрезе вот этой темы, подумать о том, как я им могу помочь, как они все страдают вокруг. Вот как антидот, чтобы помнить 6 раз в день хотя бы об этом. И постепенно приучать себя к этой практике.
Cool. All right. Thank you all. If you didn't speak up and wanted to share something, share it in the chat. We had some functional ideas, like how do you actually go about doing it? 6 times book. We talked about we can't necessarily help everybody, but we can help somebody, and not being frozen in inaction, picking somebody or somebody as representative of all people. I think it's a hard question. Let's look at the PPT. Let's do the end of class 2. Where did we get to? Let's go to, keep going. That was the meditation, the one before that. Class 2 is so cool. I just can't let go of it. So let's talk about what happened. What did we miss? So in class 2, there's a discussion about ultimate reality and deceptive reality. So let's try the Tibetan Dundam Dempa, Dundam Dempa, and Kunzop Dempa. Kunzop Dempa. If you're a Tibetan scholar, I asked why it's a DZ instead of a TS. You can chat that in the chat for the pronunciation. Why is the third column in this case DZ, Kunzop, instead of TS? Looking at you, Roxana Gibson. Ultimate reality. When we talk about ultimate reality or truth, ultimate truth, deceptive truth, it means a reality, a type of a reality. Okay, so when we hear truth, Geshe translates it as reality. It's a type of reality. So if we look at an object like a pen, and we said, well, what's the nature of the object? We could say, well, its nature is its emptiness. I think that's traditionally what we want to say. Oh, Roxana, you got the right answer. Nice. It's the raw head letter. Nobody cares except four of us. There's two different natures of this pen. There's a deceptive nature and an ultimate nature. Like if I said, what's the nature of this object? We need to be able to differentiate two different ways of talking about it. It's got a deceptive nature. The reality of the pen appearing to exist one way, but really existing in another way. Kunzoptemp. Deceptive reality. The one that deceives a deceived state of mind. And then there's an ultimate nature. The lack of a self-existent nature. Is one more true than the other? Is the deceptive nature of the pen more or less true than the ultimate nature of the pen? Is one reality of the pen more true than the other reality? Raise your hand if you think yes. Very few yeses. I don't think so. I think they're both as real. They're both as true. There's a deceptive reality, there's an ultimate reality. Is one more important? Raise your hand if you think one is more important. Equally important. Thank you for at least having a position. I'm going to take the other position. I would say the ultimate reality is more important. Because if you see that reality, the fact that it is empty, we're destroying ignorance. We're destroying an illusion that leads us to being free of negative emotions and negative thoughts. So does it have both truths? Yes or yes, raise your hand. Should be a lot of hands. Yeah, you could say it's got both realities to it, a deceptive reality and an ultimate reality. What is the ultimate truth or the ultimate reality in the relationship to the pen? It's emptiness. The deceptive reality is a description of how it appears. Right? So you could say we're describing how it exists. It's empty. And how it appears. It appears as a pen. And it appears as a self-existent pen to a mind that is screwed up. And that's an important distinction. So deceptive truth, a description of how it appears. Important to understand it's appearing deceptive to a deceived state of mind. What's the ultimate nature of the pen? Emptiness. It's lack of a self-existent nature. So does a pen exist ultimately? when we say does something exist ultimately in Buddhism, it means self-existent. So does a pen exist ultimately? No. Is there an ultimate reality and emptiness attached to this pen? Yes. Does it exist deceptively? Yes. It appears one way and exists another way to a deceived state of mind. So if we say money comes from work, is that deceptive reality or ultimate reality? Getting a bunch of votes for deceptive. Great. Money comes from seeds. Deceptive reality or ultimate reality? Money comes from seeds. Deceptive reality or ultimate reality? Money comes from generosity. Deceptive reality or ultimate reality? Still deceptive. Okay. That's still a truth that is appearing one way and existing in another way. It's not a description of emptiness. It's not emptiness. So then there was a question of, does a Buddha see deceptive reality? And if so, how? In my ideal world, we would go back into breakout groups and debate that. Here we are already a class behind. We should be thinking, let me just check the chat here. Does a Buddha see deceptive reality? Yeah. Owen said they see both reality. They better. They better be able to see both realities. It's a problem if they don't. They are able, but I thought deceptive reality deceived people. A Buddha's not deceived. So we have to be really careful about that definition. It's that which appears deceptive to a deceived state of mind. Can a Buddha perceive this pen, a thing that appears deceptive to a screwed up state of mind? Yeah, no problem. Does that mean they're deceived by it? Are they fooled by it? No, of course not. Can they still see it? Yeah, no problem. So it's the beginning of a discussion about appearance. And this is it's a huge, huge topic. How do things appear? And it's the basis of that argument, the nature of the thing that's appearing, that distinguishes every philosophical school, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, whatever, the schools within those religions or those philosophies. Everything is distinguished by how they answer that question. When we talk about 6 schools of Buddhist philosophy, it's 6 schools, 6 different ideas of the nature of how things appear. So it must be important. So let's look at the next slide. How things appear, people call it dependent origination or dependence. In this course, Geshe Michael called it interdependence. And we looked at 3 different ways things exist in dependence on other things. How does the pen exist? Well, let's look at it from 3 different ideas. A functionalist group, an independent group, and the highest group, the Prasangika group. The answer key called it the implication group. It's not generally how Geshe defines it, but that's okay. That means the highest group, Prasangika. Let's look at the functionalist group, lower schools. Things exist like a pen or a cup, dependent on causes and conditions. Okay. If your brain is feeling fried already, hang in there. Apparently, this is really important. Let's just take a cup as an example. This school's emphasizing any one thing is constantly in flux. This cup is constantly changing, moment to moment. Molecules are moving. It's, slowly wearing out. Based on countless factors, this object is constantly changing, which we should feel fairly comfortable with from a scientific perspective. This thing is in constant motion. So anytime we think of this object, by the time it goes from the colors and shapes to my eyeball, to my mind, and I've thought of what this is, this thing has already changed. I'm a moment behind the reality of this thing. So there's never you can never truly see things as they are. We think things are isolated and limited, and that there's a cup, and that I could see the cup. But this thing is just a constant object in motion. That anytime I try to think of it, it's already changed. And we're constantly making that mistake. This school is saying we're constantly making that mistake. And there's a connection between that mistake and our pain. And that we need to figure that out to be able to remove our pain. So we have these foundational misunderstandings about the nature of a cup. And then we have an emotional reaction to it. We have emotions generated from that misunderstanding. Right? And then we commit actions based on that misunderstanding that produce results. And so Buddhist philosophy is all about there's pain in the world. Let's figure it out. Well, it comes from causes and conditions. Figure out those causes and conditions. There's something we're doing wrong, which is causing misunderstanding, an emotion connected to that misunderstanding. That then, based on that emotion, based on a wrong view, we're committing an action that's infiltrated with ignorance, attached to negative emotions. And then we're creating more seeds. So klesha karma, the negative emotions and that action perpetuates that cycle of suffering. And we just move along in this constant stream of suffering. And we're an integral part of that process. There's nothing wrong with the process other than us. Right? We are the problem. And that's okay about cups. Cups are useful because it's an object we can look at, but really we want to apply that to us. And this lower school is saying there's no you outside of those causes and conditions. You don't exist independently of all of the things happening to you. Let's go a little bit deeper for a second. Lower school. Is this a real object? Lower school is like, yeah, it's a real object. Why? It works. Cool. It works. It functions. Objects are real because they function. But it's not like a real object in the sense that it exists outside of its causes and conditions. We deny that. What isn't real? My idea, cup. Cup is real. It functions, holds water. Okay, this is lower school. What's not real? My idea, cup, because it doesn't function to hold water. The idea cup could never hold water. So in the Sautrantrika school, a real thing is something that does things. Is an aspirin real? Yeah, it does something. We have ideas that overlay on that reality. Not real. Try to think about the functionalist group, things dependent on causes and conditions with that mindset. Next school, things depend on parts. There's a problem with describing everything that exists as dependent on causes and conditions. Why? Because some things are uncaused. So it's incomplete. And so the higher schools argue with the lower schools. They're like, that definition's not complete. There's unchanging things. Unchanging things aren't caused. So you can't describe them in terms of causes and conditions. It's an incomplete definition. So does the lack of an elephant exist in this room right now? Yep. Okay. What about the lack of anger in the mind of an arhat? Is that an existing object? Or empty space? There's not a lot of examples. There's infinite, but there's, in a sense, there's not a lot of examples. So these things that are uncaused, how do we describe those? And there's a teacher that named Shantarakshita. He argues that things exist as one or many. Is this cup one thing or many things? It's one thing, it's a cup. A cup. Well, no, it's many things. There's a handle, there's a top, there's a bottom, inside, outside. Depends on how you look at it, right? And so things depend on their parts and how you look at it. If we go up from the lower school to the mind-only school, that gets uncomfortable for them because they need something external that is solid, that you can hold on to, that doesn't depend on one or many, how you think of it. And that's mind. That's the foundation consciousness. So we're slowly getting up to the higher school. Right? Mind only is like that's true of everything except foundation consciousness. When we get up to the independent school, lower school, mind only school, independent group, hang in there. We're almost done. Lower middle way. This is the school that says things depend on parts. Like mind only, they believe there's got to be a basis. There has to be something tangible and solid somewhere. Their take is this object, it has to be suggesting cup. It has to be some sort of, it's very hard to talk about the object, but it has to be something there for us to interpret. It doesn't really exist until we interpret it. It kind of hangs out there as something that doesn't really exist yet until we conceive of it in a certain way. Not surprisingly, the higher school has a problem with that. It exists, but only kind of exists, and it needs you to decide what it is. It's like an existing thing, but it doesn't really exist until you figure it out. The highest school is like, get rid of that idea of something solid and tangible, whether that's the foundation consciousness or something that's just kind of out there. That idea of a basis. There can't be something floating around out there that has any nature of its own at all. Even that basis is only what you think of it, how you think of it, and what you call it. So that's decades of philosophy. My point is, we have to get at, how does the basis exist? Mind-only school kind of says there's something out there and it triggers a perception of it. There's something here and it triggers a perception of it. Independent group says, first there's a mind that then triggers that perception of the object. So it's like, is the thing out there the thing that happens first? There's an object that triggers a perception and now we have an object. Or is there a mind that understands an object and then we can have an object? Or the high school says those things arise at the same time. It's like a bridge, like an arch. Left and right support each other. So high school is talking about any object, cup, an idea projected onto a basis. What's that basis? That's what all schools are disagreeing about. What's that basis? And how you define that basis puts you in one of those schools. Because it's defining the view of emptiness, which is the lack of it existing in any other way. Okay. So 3 different ideas. Things exist on causes, parts, projections. Rosie, are you glad you came to class? Good. That's a lot. That's a lifetime of study. If we could understand that there's a stepping stone process to getting to correct view, that would be great. Why is it important? We're perceiving things wrong. That's creating an emotion. We're acting on that emotion. That's creating seeds. That's perpetuating that wrong view. And that is the Buddhist description of suffering. If we could figure that out, we could stop it. So what's the problem? Next slide. It's me. Right? That's me. That's the problem. We need to take that whole process and start with a cup or a pen, something easy. But eventually we need to analyze the nature of me. Next slide. Does the self exist? Yes and no. So it'd be really cool to understand in what way the self exists and in what way it doesn't exist. It'd be really cool to figure that out in relationship to those 3 perspectives. Next slide. Karma and emptiness, do they contradict each other? No. Next slide. All right, we've made it to course 2. We've made it to class 3. In our review of ACI 16, we're reviewing the first 5 courses. We've finished course 1, 3 principal paths. We're now starting our review of course 2, Buddhist refuge. Okay. Cool. This is our third class. We are now officially starting class 3. Class 3 is a review. Class 3 and 4 are reviews of course 2, Buddhist Refuge. Cool. We oriented? All right. Next slide. What's course 2 all about? It's a topic called perfection of wisdom. Or just wisdom, sherab. Say sherab, sherab, wisdom, sherab. Or prajna paramita, prajna paramita. The wisdom that takes us to the other side. Let's look at the root text. Next slide. This is a cool slide. It all starts with the Buddha. That's the image in the background. Specifically, this subject, the perfection of wisdom, is attributed to, comes from 2 books. Spoken by Maitreya, written by a Sangha. Okay, so when we look at the ACI course as a whole, the 15 courses, those are based on 5 great books. And so you can study Lam Rim by studying those 5 great books. Or you can study that whole path by studying a Lam Rim text. Okay, so 2 traditional ways to study the whole path. 1, 5 great books. That's how they did it in the monastery. You study the 5 great books. Or you can study that whole path by studying Lam Rim. Okay. 2 of those 5 great books are Maitreya and Asanga, teaching perfection of wisdom. Of course, we will look at commentaries. The commentary is the analysis of the perfection of wisdom. I'm not sure if that's Jetsunkapa's commentary or Kejip Tempa Dargye. Maybe somebody could figure that out or knows and write it in the chat. Kejip Tempa Dargye is he's a Sarah May textbook writer. So he comes from the same university that Geshe Michael and Geshe Michael's teacher did. So he's very much, we should be familiar with his philosophy and thinking. He's like, we're a direct lineage to Kejip Tempa Dargye. So he wrote the textbook for Sarah May. Sarah May is where Geshe Michael's teacher studied, and that lineage is what comes into us through Geshe Michael. Let's go to the next slide. Cool. So first part of this course is talking about refuge. Today, in half an hour, we're going to talk about refuge, 3 jewels, 5 paths, and 4 types of bodhicitta. Okay, that's today's class. What's refuge? 3 jewels, the thing we take refuge in, 5 paths, types of bodhicitta. Type 1 if you think we will succeed in covering all of that. Type 2 if you think there's no hope in hell. Let's do it. When we talk about refuge, we can talk about two types: ordinary, exceptional. Keep that in mind. Okay. As for a definition, let's read the definition in Tibetan. I will pick on somebody to read. Might as well start with Tibetan scholar. Gibson, you want to read for us?
Okay, thank you.
We'll set the bar high.
月贤啦让多奇瑞王下为先把康 Troy Penny.
Cool. All right, here's our classical definition of refuge. Basically, and it's a very cool definition to remember. It's one of the few definitions that I've committed to memory. Forgotten, recommitted to memory, forgotten, recommitted to memory. If you want a couple definitions, we'll get two in this class today that are great. Basically, refuge is there's a problem. I have a problem, which in one sense is just like I can't figure out how to be completely happy. Like I do okay. You know, in general, I'm pretty happy. But there's always something going on in my mind that's complaining or unhappy. And I can't figure it out. Like I've tried a bunch of stuff. I've tried traveling, you know, I've tried relationships. I've tried partying. I've tried yoga. You know, it just doesn't seem to work. So do I believe there can be something that does work? I don't know what it is. I need some help. So it's based on this realization of what we talked about of suffering. There's suffering in the world. I can't figure out how to stop it. I believe something has an answer. And so I'm going to go to that thing for help. So, ordinary refuge, there's a problem. When I was, I don't know, 7 and my brother punched me, I went to mom. That was refuge. If somebody, you know, I don't know, screwed me on a business deal, I would go to refuge in the lawyer or the court system. My house was on fire, go to refuge in the fire department, like that. So there's problems. We go to an external source for help to that problem. What's a real refuge? What's a exceptional refuge? What's the real refuge? In the Buddhist context, it's 3 jewels. Okay. So the mom, lawyer, fire department are ordinary refuge. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Buddhist refuge. And we need to distinguish between Buddha and Buddha jewel. Dharma and Dharma jewel, Sangha and Sangha jewel. It's a huge distinction. So let's go through it. Buddha is the Buddha 2,500 years ago, or maybe an image of the Buddha. Right? Can we go to the Buddha for refuge to solve our problems? The classical example is no, because people were hanging on to the Buddha's robes as they were killed. They were trying to hide behind the Buddha, grabbing onto him as they were killed. Buddha couldn't stop their death. Dharma is just like like a textbook. I can put as many Dharma books around my apartment as I want, and it doesn't do anything. Like, I can surround myself in books or audio recordings. It doesn't protect me from suffering. And then the Sangha traditionally is ordained community. Same thing. I could become ordained or have a bunch of ordained friends, and that doesn't guarantee I won't suffer. And that's the nominal jewels. That's the normal way of thinking of jewels, of the three jewels: Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Or sorry, the three places of refuge: Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Then we could think of it as Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel. What's the difference? Buddha, a guy that lived 2,500 years ago, or an image. Buddha jewel is the omniscience in the mind of a Buddha. Or you could say the omniscience and the emptiness of the mind of a Buddha, or the bodies of a Buddha. It's that omniscience that can really help us. They know what to teach. They know exactly what we need. We take refuge. It's not in the person, it's in their omniscience. So it's the difference between a person and the omniscience they have. Buddha, Buddha jewel. One can help us get out of suffering, and that's the Buddha jewel. Dharma jewel, we'll talk about it in a second. Sangha jewel, those people that have seen emptiness directly. So we can talk about somebody that wears the robes, someone that's taken ordination as a Sangha member. Sangha jewel is someone who's seen emptiness directly. Let's go to the next slide. Geshe Michael singled out Dharma jewel. So we'll talk about that a little more. What's the Dharma jewel? Dharma jewel is the realizations and cessations in the mind of someone that's seen emptiness directly. So the answer key says a truth or a kind of reality, a path. So when we talk about a path or three principal paths, we have to remember that's a realization. It's a state of mind. Okay, a path means a state of mind. And so the Dharma jewel is the realizations in the mind of an Arya. I'm not sure that's the best example from the answer key. But let's say the direct perception of emptiness as a true path. And then a cessation is the negative states of mind that are eliminated from seeing emptiness directly. So the doubt in the path. Once we've seen the truth directly in deep meditation, then we like one of the realizations Geshe Michael talks about is, you've seen the Dharmakaya, you've seen one of the bodies of a Buddha directly. And so you could never doubt the existence of that again. You've seen the day of your enlightenment and what it will take to get you there. So you lose doubt in that path. He often says, you will be called something different when you become enlightened. And then in this class, it was so cool. He said, actually, you see that they won't call you something. It was a slight difference. It was like, you know what they'll call you. And then he's like, actually, that's not quite it. You know what they won't call you. And he's like, that's a long story and we'll talk about it later. And I've never actually heard him talk about it, but I was reviewing and it caught my attention. You know what they won't call you. All right. Buddha Dharma Sangha, Buddha Dharma Sangha jewel. We go for refuge to the jewels, the three jewels. They all involve emptiness. The omniscience and emptiness of the other bodies of a Buddha. The realization of having seen emptiness in the mind of an Arya. And the community of people who have had that experience. So when we see emptiness directly, how many of the three jewels do we instantly become? 1, 2, or 3. 0, 1, 2, or 3. You could hold up your fingers. You become 1 jewel, 2 jewel, there's going to be balloons, or 3. Dan voting on 2. Christina, 2. Jean has 0. Oh, now 1, now 2. Now 5. All right, you guys can debate it in the chat. 1, 2, or 3. We got some 3s, we got some 2s and 3s and 1s. Might be a good breakout group tomorrow, next week. Next slide. Geshe Michael used that opportunity to talk about the 5 paths. It's not a homework question. Let's skip it. There are 5 paths. We see emptiness directly on the path of seeing. Next slide. There's a question about 3 scopes of practitioners. On your homework, you will be asked about the lower scope. These 3 scopes are 3 motivations for your practice. So at the beginning of class, when we said, what's your motivation? here's 3 options that we could embrace when we go to class, or as we go through our day, or as we live through life, or as we do virtuous activities. How often do we have a lower scope motivation as we go through our day? I'll speak for myself, not often. Right? How much of my day am I doing my actions based on an awareness of suffering? Or that if I create non-virtue, I will be reborn in a crappy situation. That's the one way of describing 3 scopes of practitioners, 3 things that make you Buddhist. Next slide. I mainly wanted to show this just because the image is so cool. Result refuge. We're taking refuge in the result. We can take refuge in our own enlightenment or our own future as a Arya. How would that work? That'd be a really good homework question. I know one day, given infinite time, that's another interesting question. Given infinite time, I will be a Buddha. Is that true? Have we not had infinite time? How much more time do we need than infinite? That question aside, there's ignorance and there's an antidote to ignorance, which is wisdom. Okay. Wisdom is more powerful than ignorance. So at some point, wisdom will win. That's one proof of the end of samsara, the end of suffering. Meaning I must get there at some point. Having a teacher that's seen emptiness directly, that apparently gives us an opportunity to do it much, much quicker. Here's this idea. If we accept I must become that at some point in the future, we can take refuge in that result. How does that work? In practical terms, how do I do that? Geshe Michael's like, you can take some time and go sit down and call out to your future you, the Buddha, and ask for help. As a homework question, how does that work? Next slide. Having completely and thoroughly covered refuge in 26 minutes, we will now cover bodhicitta. Who knows the definition in Tibetan of bodhicitta? Yeah. Let's do it. Semke, Pani, Semdun Chir, Yang Dak Zogpe, Jang Chu De. Why is it Yang Dak and Zogpe? Tibetan scholars. Why is it Yang Dak and Zogpe? The definition of bodhicitta is to achieve enlightenment for my own benefit and all beings. there are a bunch of ways that we can define or divide bodhicitta. In course 2, that's done in 4 different ways. In the review of course 2, we only do it in 2 ways. Let's take a look at them. Next slide. 2 types or 2 divisions of the wish. 1, the wish in the form of a prayer. And the wish in the form of action. So one is called munsem, the wish in the form of a wish, form of a prayer. One is juksem, the wish in the form of action. So one is taking this idea, I want to get enlightened for the benefit of all beings. One is like, I buy into that. That sounds great. One day I'll do it. Really want to go to Hawaii. Sounds awesome. One day I'll go there. The wish in the form of action is, let's get on kayak and get ourselves a ticket and go to Hawaii. We're actually going there. We're doing it. We're doing the activities of a bodhisattva. Meaning we're maybe keeping the bodhisattva vows, the 6 perfections. Keeping that state of mind. I want to get enlightened for the sake of all beings. As we do our activities. So one is like an intention, one is an engagement. And when we take our vows, we can take them in either form. Love the idea. One day, not today, I'm going to jump in and do it. Right now, I'm just going to wish to do it. It's a form of a wish, an intention. Or we could take our vows like full on, I am now going to live my life and do those activities of a bodhisattva. Okay. End of class. For those that voted 1, we will finish. Sorry, we were 5 minutes away. For those that voted 2, you are correct. We have deceptive and ultimate bodhicitta to talk about. I could do it in 30 seconds. Let's save it for next class. Cool. There's a lot to think about in that class. Find something to take away. Find something to like, let's not do another class where the main focus is the 7-step method for developing bodhicitta and not do it. That's a waste of time. So find something from this class. Maybe that is talking about sutra school. What's that idea of a real thing is a cup? Unreal is the idea of cup. Or try to think of those progression of how people view external objects from those 3 points of view. Or commit to memorizing the Tibetan for the definition of refuge. Or really become clear on the Buddha Dharma Sangha jewel as exceptional forms of refuge, as opposed to ordinary refuge. Well, find something, okay? Find something. What is this result refuge idea? How would I actually do that in a way that could possibly help me? Like personally, well, Here I go again. I think it's a dumb idea. So let's start the debate. Result refuge is a dumb idea. Come back with your debate against me. Okay? You can't pray to something that doesn't exist yet and expect them to help you. It's nice, it's kind of a feel-good exercise, but it doesn't work. That's my position. So we'll come back and debate that maybe next class. Okay. Translators, thank you so much. Tech folk, thank you so much, Karina. Francisco, the rest of you. See you on Friday.
Live long, keep teaching. Thank you, Earl.